Hey everyone, Mike here, and with me is Emily.
Way.
And welcome to the Deep Read,
Yes.
where we take listener-submitted material and we just dive deep into it.
That's right.
And today,
we go deep.
we're diving into Dinner for Vampires by Bethany Joy Lenz.
Ooh, interesting title.
Yeah, so buckle up, because it's a wild ride
I love it.
through faith, fame, and manipulation in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating memoir because it really gets you thinking about those communities that seem so perfect from the outside,
Right.
but things aren't always as they seem.
No, they're not. And this story really drives that point home.
For sure.
You start with Bethany's childhood.
Okay.
Lots of moving,
Mm.
changing schools.
Yeah.
Never
Mm.
quite fitting in.
I feel that.
And she finds solace in two things:
Okay.
performing arts and her Christian faith.
Right.
And it's like this potent combination that sets the stage for
Yep.
everything that follows.
Yeah, I think that need for belonging, for something stable, especially when coupled with deep faith, can make someone vulnerable to those seeking to exploit that.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that vulnerability takes her straight to Hollywood,
Of course.
chasing those acting dreams, landing commercials, even a Stephen King movie.
Wow.
But
Oh.
she's battling these feelings of inadequacy, longing for that validation, both in her career and personal life.
Yeah, you need to make it in Hollywood.
Yeah, and it's almost like she's primed for a group that promises acceptance and belonging.
Totally. And that's where this Bible study group enters the picture. It's led by Harker and Abe, and it's full of young actors just like Bethany navigating the same world of faith and fame.
Right.
She's instantly drawn to the warmth, the feeling of finally finding her people.
Mhm.
And then you have this charismatic couple, Ed and Pam, who become these influential figures,
Right.
offering guidance and support.
It sounds idyllic, almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
Which, of course, leads us to wonder what's lurking beneath the surface.
Right, because even at this early stage, there are these subtle hints of control and manipulation. Like, for example, Bethany describes this constant pressure to hug everyone
Oh, wow.
all the time.
Interesting.
It presented as affection, but it also serves as a way to enforce conformity,
Okay.
to discourage any dissent.
That's a really interesting point. It's like using physical touch to create this unspoken rule about how you're supposed to behave.
Exactly. And then you have the arrival of Les,
Okay.
this pastor from Idaho,
Uh-huh.
who slowly takes over the group.
Okay.
And he shifts the focus to spiritual warfare, constantly emphasizing this need to identify and reject negative influences.
It sounds almost paranoid, like everyone is a potential enemy.
It is, and Les encourages members to rely solely on his guidance for every decision, personal or professional.
Oh, wow.
He's positioning himself as the ultimate authority, the only one who can truly protect them.
That's classic cult behavior, isolating people, making them dependent on the leader.
Absolutely, and this Idaho connection intensifies when Les relocates.
Okay. And he takes over Ed and Pam's house.
Oh, okay.
This becomes the God Spa, a retreat center that's supposed to be about spiritual growth and healing.
Oh, sad.
Okay, but Bethany's starting to notice these unsettling details.
All right.
Odd smells, shady financial dealings, conflicting information about the group's structure. It all seems very suspicious.
Yeah, and what I find so fascinating is how Bethany grapples with her parents' concerns.
Right.
They're clearly seeing the red flags.
Yeah.
But she dismisses their worries as like a lack of spiritual understanding.
Oh, wow.
It just shows how deeply entrenched she is in this group, how much she trusts Les.
It's like her critical thinking has been completely overridden by her need to belong to be accepted by this community.
Exactly. And this blind trust leads her into a forced marriage.
What?
Les orchestrates her engagement to his son QB.
Oh, no.
Despite her having no romantic feelings for him,
Oh.
she's repeatedly told to just trust God's plan, to ignore her own doubts and instincts.
It's heartbreaking to read, honestly. She's being manipulated.
Yeah.
Coerced into this marriage under the guise of faith. This isn't just about belonging anymore. It's about control.
You're right. It's textbook spiritual abuse, using faith as a weapon to control her life, her choices, even her future family.
And then the financial manipulation comes to light.
Yeah.
Bethany discovers that Les has been using her money and funds from other members to prop up his failing ventures, including a motel and a restaurant.
And we also learn about Gretchen's gambling addiction and how she was stealing from Triade, the financial management firm controlled by, you guessed it, Les.
A
It's
lot.
this web of deceit and exploitation.
The God Spa sounds more like a Godzilla spa,
Yeah.
wreaking havoc on everyone's finances.
Totally.
It's incredible how Les managed to deceive so many people for so long.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So we left off with Bethany, realizing the extent of the financial deception orchestrated by Les.
Right.
But even more disturbing is how this manipulation goes beyond, finances and into her personal life.
Yeah.
This forced marriage to QB Les's son. It's
Right.
just a prime example. Bethany's repeatedly told to disregard her own feelings and just trust in God's plan.
Right.
This is a classic tactic of spiritual abusers.
Uh-huh.
They use faith as a shield
Right.
to deflect any questioning or dissent.
And it's so effective, especially for someone like Bethany,
Right.
who's already grappling with, those feelings of self-doubt and that deep longing for acceptance.
It preys on those vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
creating this toxic cycle of dependence and self-blame.
Right.
Even when QB becomes increasingly controlling and volatile,
Right.
Bethany tries to rationalize it,
Oh, wow.
clinging to this belief that it's all part of God's will.
It's a stark reminder that spiritual abuse can happen to anyone,
Yes,
regardless of their background or intelligence.
absolutely.
It's not about being naive. It's about the insidious nature of manipulation,
Yeah.
how it can slowly erode your sense of self
Yeah.
and warp your perception of reality.
And that's why it's so crucial to recognize the signs, the
Yeah.
red flags
That-
that often signal an abusive dynamic.
Right.
One common tactic is the use of fear and guilt.
Okay.
Glass is constantly hammered on this concept of spiritual warfare,
Yeah.
instilling a sense of paranoia and urgency in his followers,
Right.
making them believe that they were constantly under attack,
Wow.
and only he could offer true protection.
So he basically created this us versus them mentality,
Yes.
isolating his followers from the outside world,
Mm-hmm.
reinforcing their dependence on him.
Precisely, he discouraged critical thinking.
Wow.
Framing any questioning of his authority as like a lack of faith, a sign of spiritual weakness.
Right.
He controlled information,
Yeah.
selectively interpreting scriptures
Right.
to suit his agenda and isolating members from outside influences.
And let's not forget about those forced confessions and public repentance sessions.
Yeah, those were clearly designed to humiliate and control,
Right.
creating this cycle of shame that made it even harder for members to break free.
It's really awful.
What I find particularly disturbing is how Les exploited the concept of forgiveness. He'd encourage members to confess their deepest fears and insecurities,
Right.
and then use that information to manipulate and control them.
Oh, wow.
Forgiveness became a tool to maintain power, not to foster genuine healing or growth.
It's a perversion of faith,
It is.
twisting something beautiful and sacred into a weapon of manipulation,
Absolutely.
like these emotional vampires sucking the life out of their followers.
That's such a powerful analogy.
Yeah.
And it perfectly captures the insidious nature of this type of abuse. It's
Right.
not always physical or overtly aggressive.
Right.
It's often subtle, psychological, and deeply damaging to one's sense of self.
Bethany's story is a stark reminder that spiritual abuse can manifest in various forms,
Yes,
and within any community, not just fringe religious groups.
exactly. It's crucial to be aware of the red flags, regardless of your religious beliefs or affiliations. Excessive control, isolation from loved ones, pressure to conform, and financial exploitation
Right.
are all warning signs that should never be ignored.
We've talked about the tactics.
Yeah.
But what about the aftermath?
Right.
Bethany eventually escapes this group,
Yeah,
but the scars run deep.
they do.
What does her story tell us about the process of healing
Yeah.
and reclaiming one's life after such a traumatic experience?
I think that's where Bethany's courage truly shines.
Yeah.
Leaving the group is just the first step.
Uh-huh.
The real work begins with untangling years of indoctrination, rebuilding a sense of self, and confronting the trauma.
Yeah.
She bravely details her journey through therapy, rediscovering her own voice, and finding strength in sharing her story.
Her vulnerability in sharing her struggles is so powerful.
It is.
It reminds us that healing is possible,
Yeah,
even after enduring such manipulation and betrayal.
absolutely.
It also highlights the importance of seeking professional help
Yes.
and finding a supportive community to help navigate the complex emotions and challenges that arise in the aftermath of abuse.
Absolutely. Bethany's honesty in discussing the psychological impact is vital. She doesn't shy away from the feelings of shame, confusion, and anger
Right.
that often accompany such an experience. And
Yeah,
by
yeah.
doing so, she opens up a space for others to process their own experiences and seek help without fear of judgment.
I think it's also crucial to emphasize that Bethany's story isn't just about exposing the darkness.
Right.
It's also about resilience and hope.
Absolutely.
She not only survived this ordeal, but ultimately thrived,
She did.
reclaiming her agency, rebuilding her life, and finding genuine connection and love outside the confines of that controlling group.
Welcome back to The Deep Read.
We're back.
We've been delving deep into Bethany Joy Lenz's memoir, Dinner for Vampires,
Yes.
exploring this harrowing reality of spiritual abuse and her courageous journey of escape and healing.
It's a story that raises so many questions,
Yeah.
about the nature of faith, the allure of belonging, and that delicate balance between seeking guidance
Right.
and surrendering our autonomy.
Bethany's experience with this manipulative group
Reveals how easily our deep-seated need for connection can be exploited,
Yes.
especially when framed within the context of faith and spirituality.
For sure.
It makes you wonder, how can we discern between genuine spiritual guidance
Right.
and manipulative control?
That's a question I think we all grapple with, especially in a world saturated with information
Yeah.
and conflicting ideologies.
Totally.
Bethany's story highlights, I think, the critical importance of cultivating discernment, of learning to think critically and evaluate information,
Right.
even when it comes from sources we trust or admire.
It's about recognizing that blind faith,
Yes.
while often presented as a virtue,
Right.
can actually make us vulnerable to manipulation.
Absolutely.
It's not about abandoning a faith altogether,
Right.
but rather about approaching it with a healthy dose of skepticism, questioning, and independent thought.
I love that what's so fascinating, too, is how Bethany's story also sheds light on the dynamics of these seemingly idyllic communities that promise, belonging and unconditional love,
Right.
but often demand absolute obedience and conformity in return.
Yes.
These groups thrive on creating an us versus them mentality,
Right.
isolating members from outside influences and reinforcing dependence on the leader.
It's almost like a metaphorical walled garden.
Yes.
It may seem beautiful and safe at first, but you're trapped within its confines,
Totally.
unable to see the dangers lurking beyond those walls.
And that's where the concept of healthy boundaries becomes essential,
Yes.
both in our personal and spiritual lives.
Yeah.
It's about, learning to recognize when our need to belong is being exploited.
Right.
When someone is crossing those lines and attempting to control, our thoughts, beliefs, and actions.
It's about having the courage to question authority,
Yes.
to say no, to walk away from situations that feel unhealthy or controlling, even when it's difficult or painful to do so.
Bethany's story reminds us that true belonging isn't about sacrificing our individuality or surrendering our critical thinking skills.
Right.
It's about finding communities that value authenticity, encourage open dialogue,
Yes.
and respect diverse perspectives,
Yeah.
even when those perspectives challenge the status quo.
It's about seeking guidance and support
Yes.
without relinquishing our agency
Right.
or becoming dependent on a single source of truth.
Absolutely.
It's about cultivating a faith that empowers us to think critically,
Yes.
to question, to grow, and to make our own choices, even when those choices differ from the prescribed path.
Bethany's journey ultimately becomes this testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
Right.
She doesn't just survive this ordeal.
Right.
She thrives.
Yeah.
She reclaims her voice, rebuilds her life, and discovers genuine connection and love outside the confines of that controlling group.
Her story is a beacon of hope,
It is.
reminding us that even after enduring such profound manipulation and betrayal,
Yeah.
healing is possible. It's a powerful reminder that we all have an inherent worth and dignity
Absolutely.
that cannot be diminished regardless of what we may have experienced or the choices we may have made.
And that's why sharing these stories is so crucial.
Yeah.
By breaking the silence.
Right.
By shining a light on the dark undercurrents of manipulation and abuse.
Uh-huh.
We empower others to recognize the red flags, to seek help, and to begin their own journey of healing and recovery.
Bethany's story is a call to action for all of us.
Yes.
To be more vigilant, more discerning, and more courageous in standing up for ourselves.
Yes.
And for others who may be caught in similar situations.
It's a reminder that we have a collective responsibility to create a world where genuine connection, respect, and individual freedom
Right.
are the cornerstones of our communities,
Yes.
and where everyone can feel safe, valued, and empowered to live authentically.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Dinner for Vampires.
Such a good one.
We hope this exploration has provided valuable insights into the complex dynamics of spiritual abuse and inspired you to think critically about the communities and influences that shape your life.
Absolutely.
If you'd like to explore other thought-provoking content like this, don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Read and tell your friends about the show.
Please do.
Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep those critical thinking caps firmly in place.
Love it.